A backcountry ranger found an abandoned campsite in the Pemigewasset Wilderness last October. The tent was still standing, properly staked, guy lines tensioned correctly. The sleeping bag was laid out inside, personal items organized neatly. A camp stove sat on a flat rock with a pot of water still on it, evaporated down to a residue. The ranger estimated the site had been abandoned for at least 3 days, maybe 4. But what made him call it in to the district office wasn't the abandoned equipment. It was what he found written on the inside of the tent fly. Someone had used a marker to write directly on the fabric, starting near the door and continuing in increasingly erratic handwriting across the entire surface. The same phrases, repeated over and over. "It helped me. It knows where I am. It's been watching longer than 3 days. It knows my name now. I never told it my name." The tent belonged to a man named Voss, 32 years old, an experienced wilderness camper from Vermont. His car was still at the trailhead. His wallet and phone were inside the tent. But Voss was gone. Search and rescue found no trace of him, no tracks leading away from the campsite, no signs of struggle. He'd simply left everything behind and disappeared into the forest. When they processed the campsite, they found his journal. The last entry was dated 3 days after he'd hiked in. The entry was long, detailed, and increasingly incoherent. But it told a story that made the search and rescue coordinator quietly pull the case file and mark it with a classification code that meant something unusual had occurred. Something that didn't fit normal wilderness incident patterns. Eric's journal described an encounter with something in the woods, something that spoke to him. Something that helped him, something that got closer every time it spoke. This is what he wrote. Day 1 was normal. Eric had hiked 8 miles into the Pemigewasset, following a maintained trail to a point where it intersected with a smaller, less traveled path. He'd left the main trail and continued another 2 miles into deeper wilderness, looking for solitude. He found a good campsite beside a small stream, with flat ground for his tent and a natural fire ring of stones left by previous campers. He set up camp in the late afternoon. The weather was clear, temperature in the low 50s, perfect for October camping. He collected firewood, purified water from the stream, and prepared a simple dinner. As the sun set, he built a fire and sat watching the flames, enjoying the isolation. He saw no other hikers, heard no human sounds, just the stream, the wind in the trees, and the occasional call of an owl. He wrote in his journal by firelight, noting that this was exactly what he'd needed. 3 days away from people, away from screens, away from the constant noise of modern life. Just him and the forest. He stayed up until the fire burned down to coals, then retired to his tent around 10 p.m. He slept well, no disturbances, no unusual sounds. When he woke on day 2, the morning was crisp and bright. He made coffee, ate breakfast, and spent the day hiking without a pack, exploring the surrounding area. He found a ridge with excellent views. He identified several bird species. He took photos of interesting fungal growths on dead trees. It was, by his account, a perfect day of wilderness solitude. He returned to camp in the late afternoon and prepared dinner. As darkness fell, he built another fire. And that's when the first incident occurred. Eric had placed his flashlight on a rock beside his camp chair, with an easy reach for when he needed to navigate to the stream or tend the fire. Around 8 p.m., as he was adjusting a log in the fire, his elbow knocked the flashlight. It rolled off the rock, bounced once, and tumbled down a steep slope behind his campsite. The slope descended about 20 feet into a rocky ravine filled with deadfall and shadow. Eric swore under his breath. The flashlight was his primary light source. His headlamp was inside the tent, but he'd need light to safely navigate down the ravine to retrieve the flashlight. He stood up, considering his options. He could get the headlamp first. or he could carefully descend using the firelight to see. Before he could move, a voice spoke from the darkness below. "I'll get it for you." Eric froze. The voice was male, conversational, friendly, like a neighbor offering to help with a dropped tool. But Eric was supposed to be alone. He hadn't seen anyone on the trail, hadn't heard anyone approach, and the voice came from down on the ravine, from the darkness where his flashlight had fallen. "Hello," Eric called out. "Is someone there?" No response, just the sound of the stream and the crackling fire. Eric waited, listening. Maybe he'd imagined it. Maybe his mind had created a voice from the random sounds of the forest. He took a step toward the ravine edge, peering down into the darkness. Something moved below, a rustling sound, the scrape of metal on rock. Then his flashlight rolled up the slope. Not bounced, not thrown. It rolled smoothly up the 20-foot incline as if gravity was reversed, traveling in a straight line until it reached the top and came to rest against his boot. Eric stared at it. That wasn't possible. Objects don't roll uphill, not unless someone carried them up and placed them there. But he'd been watching the slope. He hadn't seen anyone climb up, hadn't heard footsteps. The flashlight had just rolled up on its own, smoothly and deliberately, and stopped exactly at his feet. He picked it up with shaking hands. The flashlight was still on, beam pointed at the ground. He turned it toward the ravine, sweeping the beam across the slope, into the shadows between the trees, across the deadfall. Nothing, no person, no movement. Just rocks and logs and darkness. "You're welcome," said the voice. Closer now, much closer, maybe 10 feet away, at the edge of the firelight. But when Eric swung the flashlight toward the voice, there was nothing there, just forest, just trees. "I've been watching you set up camp," the voice continued. "You did a good job with the tent, very neat, good site selection." Eric's heart was hammering. The voice sounded genuinely friendly, genuinely complimentary, like someone making casual conversation. But there was no one visible. And the observations were accurate. He had done a good job with the tent. He had selected the site carefully. "Who are you?" Eric managed to ask. His voice came out higher than intended. "Just a neighbor," the voice replied. "I live around here. Saw you come in yesterday. Always nice to see respectful campers. So many people leave trash. But you've been clean. Careful with your fire. Good water purification practices. I appreciate that." The voice was moving. Eric could track it by sound. It circled around his campsite, staying just outside the firelight, just beyond where his flashlight beam could reach clearly. Whenever he turned toward it, he saw nothing, just trees and darkness. But the voice continued, walking slowly around his camp. "You haven't spoken to anyone in 3 days," the voice said. "Must be nice. The quiet. I understand the appeal. I don't talk to many people either. Not many people come this far in." That detail hit Eric like cold water. 3 days. He'd been on the trail 3 days. He'd mentioned it to no one, hadn't written it in his journal where anyone could read it. How did this person know? "I'd appreciate it if you showed yourself," Eric said, trying to sound calm. "I don't like talking to someone I can't see." "Oh, you wouldn't want to see me," the voice replied, still friendly, still conversational. "I'm not much to look at anymore. Been out here a long time. You know how it is. The forest changes you. I prefer the dark now. It's easier on both of us if I stay here in the shadows. But I wanted to help with your flashlight. And I wanted to say hello. Common courtesy." Eric considered packing up, getting in his tent, waiting for daylight. But the tent wouldn't protect him from anything. It was just nylon, and this person, this thing, had already demonstrated it could move objects, could get close without being seen. Running seemed pointless, so he tried a different approach. "Thank you for returning my flashlight," Eric said carefully. "That was helpful. I appreciate it." "You're welcome," the voice said, and Eric could hear the pleasure in it, like it was genuinely happy to have helped. "I like being helpful. It's been a long time since I could help anyone." Most people who come through here don't drop things. Or they're in groups, and groups don't need help. They help each other. But you're alone. That's better. Easier to help someone who's alone. The voice had stopped circling. It was stationary now, somewhere near the edge of his campsite, just beyond the reach of the firelight. Eric kept his flashlight pointed in that direction, but the beam revealed nothing. "How long have you been out here?" Eric asked, trying to keep the conversation going, trying to understand what he was dealing with. "Long time," the voice said. "Lost track of years. Maybe 20. Maybe more? Time gets strange when you stay in one place too long. The seasons blur together. But I know this area well now. Every trail, every campsite, every good spot for water. I could help you if you need it. I know where the best fishing is, where the ridge has the clearest views, where to find dry wood after rain." Eric's mind was racing. 20 years in the wilderness? That wasn't possible. No one survived that long without resupply, without gear replacement, without medical care. And the voice didn't sound like someone who'd been isolated that long. It sounded articulate, socially functional, almost normal. "That's a long time," Eric said. "You must know the forest very well." "I do," the voice agreed. "I know it better than I knew anything before. Better than I knew my own house. Better than I knew the city. This is home now, the only home that matters. And I take care of it. Keep it clean, keep it safe. That's why I appreciate careful campers like you. You're taking care of it too." Something about that phrasing bothered Eric. Taking care of it, keeping it safe. There was an implied threat there. A suggestion that campers who weren't careful might need correction. Might need to be dealt with. "I try to follow leave-no-trace principles," Eric said carefully. "Respect the environment." "I know," the voice said. "I've been watching. You did everything right. Hung your food properly. Dispersed your dishwater. Buried your waste at the correct distance from water. You're a good camper. That's why I helped you. That's why I'm talking to you. Been watching." The phrase made Eric's skin crawl. How long had this thing been watching? Just since yesterday? Or longer? Had it been watching him on the trail? Had it followed him from the trailhead? "I appreciate that," Eric said, though he didn't. "But I should probably get some sleep. Long day tomorrow." "Of course," the voice said agreeably. "I'll let you rest. But if you need anything during the night, just call out. I'll be nearby." "I'm always nearby. This is my section of forest. I know when anyone enters. I know when they leave. And I know when they need help." The voice fell silent. Eric waited, listening. Was it gone, or just quiet? He couldn't tell. He stood there for several minutes, flashlight sweeping the darkness, seeing nothing. Hearing nothing, except natural forest sounds. Eventually he retreated to his tent. He didn't extinguish the fire, didn't feel safe in complete darkness. He lay in his sleeping bag, fully dressed, flashlight in hand, listening. Every sound made him tense. Every rustle of wind. Every crack of a branch. He didn't sleep. Day 3 began with gray dawn light filtering through the tent. Eric emerged cautiously, exhausted from his sleepless night. The fire had burned out. His campsite looked undisturbed. In the daylight, everything seemed normal. Almost normal enough to convince himself he'd imagined the voice. Stress-induced auditory hallucination. Isolation playing tricks on his mind. But his flashlight was still there, sitting exactly where it had rolled to a stop against his boot. He hadn't imagined that. Something had returned it. Eric considered packing up and hiking out. His 3-day trip could be cut to 2, no shame in that. But in the daylight, with the sun warming the forest, the fear from last night seemed excessive. He'd had a strange experience. Maybe he'd encountered another camper, someone eccentric, someone who preferred to stay hidden. Weird, but not dangerous. He decided to stay. He spent day 3 hiking again, this time in the opposite direction from his previous exploration. He found a small waterfall. He saw fresh bear scat and gave it wide berth. He collected more firewood. The day passed normally, peacefully. He saw no signs of other people, heard no voices. As evening approached and he returned to camp, his unease returned with it. The setting sun cast long shadows through the trees. The forest sounds changed. Daytime birds fell silent. Nighttime creatures began stirring, and Eric couldn't shake the feeling that he was being observed. He built his fire earlier than necessary, wanting the light and warmth. He prepared dinner. He sat in his chair. He waited. The voice came just after full darkness. "How was your hike?" Eric jumped, nearly dropping his bowl of rehydrated camping food. The voice came from behind him this time, close, maybe 5 feet away. He spun around, flashlight beam sweeping across the trees. Nothing. "Good," Eric said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Found a waterfall. Nice area." "The small falls on the eastern branch," the voice said. "Beautiful spot. There's a pool at the base that's perfect for swimming in summer. Too cold now, but beautiful. I'm glad you found it. Most campers don't go that direction." It knew exactly where he'd been. Had it followed him, or had it somehow known where he'd go before he went there? "You've been out there today?" Eric asked. "I'm always out here," the voice replied. "I told you, this is my section. I know every part of it. I was pleased that you found the waterfall. Shows good instincts. You're exploring properly, not just staying on marked trails. You're experiencing the real forest." The compliment felt wrong. Like approval from something that shouldn't be judging him. Like being praised by a predator for being interesting prey. "Listen," Eric said, trying a direct approach. "I appreciate the conversation, but I'd really feel more comfortable if you showed yourself. Or at least explain who you are." Silence, long enough that Eric thought maybe the voice had left. Then it spoke again, and this time the friendly tone had shifted slightly. Not hostile, but less warm, more factual. "I told you, you wouldn't want to see me. I've changed. The forest changes everything that stays in it long enough. I'm part of the forest now, more forest than person. And showing myself would be uncomfortable for both of us. You'd react poorly. You'd run. Or try to, and I'd have to stop you. That wouldn't be pleasant. Better if we just talk like this, like neighbors over a fence, friendly, safe." "Stop you." The threat was explicit now. Eric's hands tightened on his flashlight. His mind raced through options. Run now. In the dark. Try to navigate back to the main trail. But he'd have to pack. He'd have to break camp. And the voice had made it clear that running would provoke a response. "I'm not planning to run," Eric said carefully. "I'm just trying to understand the situation." "The situation is simple," the voice said. "You're in my forest. You've been a good guest. You've been respectful. I appreciate that. I want to help you. I want to make sure you have everything you need. That's what neighbors do. They help each other." "What do you need?" Eric asked, the question coming out before he could stop it. Silence again, longer this time. When the voice returned, it sounded pleased, almost excited. "That's a good question. Very polite. Most people don't ask what I need. They just take their hiking experiences, take their photos, take their memories, and leave. But you're asking. That's courteous." "So what do you need?" Eric repeated, not sure he wanted the answer. "Company," the voice said simply. "I need company. It's lonely out here. 20 years, maybe more, with no one to talk to. Just watching campers come and go, never staying, never talking. But you're different. You're alone. You're a good camper, and you're polite. You asked what I need. I need you to stay." Eric's blood went cold. "I have to leave tomorrow. I have work. People expecting me." "No," the voice said, still friendly but firm. "You don't. I've been through your things. Your phone has no service. Your wallet shows you're self-employed. Your journal says you told everyone you'd be gone for a week, not 3 days. You have supplies for longer. You can stay. You should stay. We can help each other. I know this forest. I can show you things no one else sees, places no one else knows. We can be neighbors properly. It had been through his things. While he was hiking, while he was sleeping. It had searched his tent, read his journal, examined his wallet. It knew his plans, knew his lies to his friends about trip length, knew he'd built in extra time that no one would notice if he didn't use. I appreciate the offer, Eric said, fighting to keep his voice calm. But I really do need to leave tomorrow. Work obligations came up. I have to go back early. You're lying, the voice said, not angry but disappointed. I can tell. Your voice changes. Your breathing changes. You're lying because you're afraid. That's understandable. People are always afraid of things they don't understand. But you don't need to be afraid. I helped you. I returned your flashlight. I've been courteous. All I'm asking is that you stay. Be my neighbor. Help me not be lonely. Is that so much to ask? Eric stood up slowly. I'm going to my tent now. I need to sleep. Don't do that, the voice said, and now there was a harder edge to it. Don't end our conversation. We're just getting to know each other. Sit back down, please. Eric kept moving toward his tent. His hand found the zipper, started opening it. Something touched his shoulder. Not grabbed, touched, gently, the way you'd touch someone's arm to get their attention. But there was nothing there. Eric spun around, flashlight beam sweeping wildly. Nothing. Empty air. But he'd felt it. Distinctly. Fingers on his shoulder. Cold. Wrong. I asked you to sit, the voice said, much closer now, right behind him. Please sit. We're not finished talking. Eric lunged into his tent, zipped it shut with shaking hands. He knew it was useless, knew the thin nylon wouldn't stop anything, but it was a barrier. A psychological division between him and the voice. He lay in his sleeping bag, flashlight on, pointed at the tent door. That's rude, the voice said from just outside. I've been nothing but polite, nothing but helpful. And you treat me like a threat, like something to hide from. After I returned your flashlight, after I gave you compliments, after I told you about the forest, this is hurtful. Eric didn't respond, didn't move, just lay there, listening. I know your name, the voice said softly. Eric Voss. I saw it in your journal. Saw a lot of things in your journal. You're lonely too. You came out here to get away from people, but really, you're running from loneliness. You think isolation will help. But it won't. I know, I tried that. 20 years of isolation. And it doesn't help. What helps is having someone. Someone to talk to, someone to share the forest with. I can be that for you. We can be that for each other. Please leave, Eric said, his voice cracking. Please just leave me alone. I can't do that, the voice said, and it sounded genuinely sorry. I've been alone too long. And you're perfect, respectful, careful, good with the forest. You'd be a good neighbor, the best neighbor. You just need to understand that. You just need to accept it. Stay with me. Learn the forest. Learn to be like me. Part of the trees. Part of the darkness. It's peaceful. It's home. Eric grabbed his marker and started writing on the tent fabric. Every detail he could remember. Everything the voice had said. Because he understood now. He wasn't leaving this forest. Not normally. Not walking out. Whatever this thing was, it had decided he should stay. And it had the ability to make him stay. He wrote until his hand cramped, wrote until the marker ran dry. Then he lay back, exhausted, and waited for morning. But morning didn't come normally. Time stretched wrong. The darkness lasted too long. And somewhere, during those extended hours, Eric Voss made a decision. He unzipped his tent, stepped outside, and walked into the forest, following the voice that called to him, the voice that promised companionship, the voice that knew his name. The search and rescue team found his campsite days later, found his journal, found his writing on the tent, but they never found Eric. No tracks, no trace. Just his belongings, carefully arranged, and the words written in increasingly frantic handwriting across the inside of his tent. The last line he'd written was the most disturbing, 6 words, underlined 3 times. "It sounds like me now."